Sefer Shemos is known as the second book, Sefer Sheni, of the Torah because it picks up where Vayeshev left off. Vayeshev leaving off after all with Am Yisrael, all of Yaakov and his sons and his grandchildren, ending up in Mitzrayim. Ending up in Mitzrayim starts in this week's Parashat Vayeshev. Yosef is sold down to Mitzrayim. The beginning of that process starts with an interesting story. Yosef is told to go find his brothers and has a hard time finding them and encounters a person. We don't know what this person's name is. We know he's referred to as Vayimtzaehu Ish, a person, V'hinei toeh b'sadeh, and he asks him, what do you need? Ma tevakesh? Vayomer es achai anochi mevakesh, I'm looking for my brothers. And he ultimately points them in the direction to go find his brothers, and we know the rest of the story. This Ish is a parallel, says Rav Soloveitchik, to the Ish that comes up in Yaakov Avinu's important moment of his life that we read not too long ago. Vayivater Yaakov v'ado v'yavik Ish imo. Dafka, the word Ish. The Rav uses a whole number of other psukim and other points to emphasize that there's this Ish that keeps coming up throughout the story, specifically around Yaakov and Yosef. That there is an individual, an unnamed individual, that comes up in that story that guides the trajectory of Am Yisrael forward. It's the invisible hand, really the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Shaliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rashi over here points out, Vayimtzaehu Ish. Who is this Ish? It is none other than Gabriel, specifically the Malach that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent to move that story forward. Says Rav Soloveitchik, there are moments in history in which we realize that we need to step up, that we need to be heroic. And the story of Yosef and Yaakov, says the Rav, while tragic in so many ways, of having to be in Galus for Yosef's life, the entirety of his life, it's also one of sacrifice and one of heroism. That is a story that he says is connected to the Hanukkah story in a meaningful way. That it takes individuals at times to step up, to be an Ish, to be a messenger, to be not only like Moshe Rabbeinu was, a shaliach of sorts, to carry out HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will. Ani v'lo a shaliach. God says it wasn't even a shaliach. Moshe Rabbeinu was a representative, so to speak, really used as a tool to be able to allow HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will to take place in Sefer Shemos, in Yetzias Mitzrayim. Says the Rav, there's a whole other level of human involvement in carrying the Jewish story forward. That is the story of a Jew like Yosef, a Jew like Yaakov, and Jews like the Maccabim, who stepped up, the Chashmonaim stepped up, Mila Hashem Elai, to carry out HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will in this world. It starts with an anonymous Ish. It starts with an individual that guided them to go towards a direction that they didn't want to go. They were apprehensive, they were concerned, they didn't like the prospect of what was going to take place. And nonetheless, both by Yaakov, when he wrestles that Ish and deals with the complexity of having that Ish tell him that he has to go towards the direction towards his brother, he needs to move that story forward. And the same by Yosef, to go find his brothers, ultimately to find out that they were going to initially throw him into a pit and then sell him down to Mitzrayim. It's interesting to focus on this Ish and the heroism of this individual and really understanding that humanity, human beings have the opportunity to partner with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in bringing about the destiny of Am Yisrael. We're seeing that in so many ways right now, with Am Yisrael, specifically in the circumstances that we find ourselves in, the Eis Milchama, specifically at this moment, so many of our soldiers, specifically those who are Talmidim in this yeshiva, who are our friends, the Bogrim of yeshiva, but really the soldiers of all of Am Yisrael, taking it on their shoulders to defend Am Yisrael, specifically right now, not something they asked to do or they wanted to do, but they took upon themselves to do, to keep us safe and to be able to ensure that the story of the Jewish people moves forward. I do think that this really connects beautifully to the Ramban in Parashat Ba'aloscha. The Ramban, based on Rashi, asking, why is it Ba'aloscha, the menorah, comes up right after Parashat Naso? And there, Rashi says, because Naso was a moment in which all the other Nesim, all the other Shvatim had representatives bringing their contributions to the Mishkan, and Aaron felt Chalisha Sadas, he felt a little bit badly. He felt like his Shevet should have representation as well. And the way that the Torah responds to that is that, you have the mitzvah of menorah. And that's Rashi. The Ramban is bewildered, to say the least, by this question and answer in Rashi. What was it that Aaron HaKohen was really bothered about? Was he really bothered about the fact that other Nesiim had a representation during the Chanukas HaMishkan? In reality, all of their karbanos were brought by him. The whole proceedings requires Aaron to be present. In addition, the menorah was the response. What about the Kodesh HaKadoshim? He was the only one that could go in on Yom Kippur. Wouldn't that be the best way to respond to feeling that like he wasn't included? To show him that he has the only job, that he's the only one allowed to do. Says the Ramban that we're missing something. His Chalishas Adas perhaps was about the fact that his Shevet was not called upon, maybe like this idea in the Rav, to step up in the Chanukah specifically, to contribute towards the dedication of the Mishkan. Yes, they were involved, but their role was perhaps more passive than active. And quoting Rav Nisim, the Ramban points out that Aaron was comforted by the menorah not because of the menorah that was being lit in the Mishkan himself, but by the menorah that would one day be lit by his generations much later, by the descendants of Aaron HaKohen, the Chashmonaim themselves. Those who called out Mila Hashem Elai carried out a legacy, not only just partnering with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, like the Ish, to allow Jewish history to move forward, but they partnered in a way that characterized Aaron HaKohen's legacy. He taught them in a meaningful way what it meant to say Mila Hashem Elai, to be partnering with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to bring about a Chanukah in a time like that is not only a person's ability in that moment to hear the call of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to step up, but it also requires carrying out a legacy that has been passed down to them from generations beforehand. Aaron was comforted because he passed this legacy down towards his great-great-great-great-grandchildren who were able to scream out Mila Hashem Elai, reverberating the desire of Aaron HaKohen much earlier. And in so many ways, that's exactly what we're all called on to do now and always, to partner with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to do so in a way that carries out a legacy of those who have come before us and those who have taught us our ways. It's the story of Chanukah, it's the story of Yosef going into Galus, and in Mirza Hashem it will be the story of Am Yisrael going into Geula. Shabbat Shalom, Chanukah Sameach.